Welcome to Grow Getters with host Davis Michaelsen, who's looking for and discovering agriculture's most inventive side hustles. Grow Getters is sponsored by BASF. Get 0% financing on their top fungicides today. Talk to your retailer to get started.
Hey everybody, welcome to Grow Getters. Your pal Davis Michaelsen here in Kansas City, USA with a Kansas City, USA Grow Getter. We're going to learn all about it from Patrick Montgomery, KC Cattle Company and Valor Provisions. My guest today has quite the story to tell, and I'm anxious to get into it with him. Before we get too far, can I ask that you please like and subscribe so that you don't miss a single episode of Grow Getters. Valor Provisions is dedicated to forging a strong financial future for America's protein producers. We provide economically viable options to high-quality American producers while offering consumers exceptional pricing, quality, and service, patriotism, and the preservation of our nation's food independence guide every decision we make. That from Patrick Montgomery at Valor Provisions. One more, Valor Provisions, I'm quoting, is committed to supporting American farmers and ranchers who are dedicated to regenerative and ethical practices, ensuring a resilient food system for generations to come. I love every second of it. Let's bring in Patrick Montgomery, KC Cattle Company and Valor Provisions. Patrick, welcome to Grow Getters. How are you today?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We have some things to learn from you. We need to know your story. We need to know about KC Cattle Co. and Valor Provisions. But first, we like to start off Grow Getters by establishing a little bit of farm cred. In your case, it may be ranch cred. Talk to us about your current operation. What have you got going on the farm/ranch these days?
Yeah. So we're located in Weston, Missouri. You know, as we were talking about before we jumped on, another KC native. Not a farm background, right? I grew up in a rural area, but not on a farm or anything like that. And after exiting the military, this is the path I chose after not becoming a large animal vet. And so we're on 420 acres up in Weston. Got about 200 cow-calf pairs, mostly purebred wagyu at the moment.
Help me with that word, wagyu, W-A-G-Y-U. I've heard it said a million different ways. I've said it incorrectly this whole time, I'm pretty sure. Pronounce it for us, please, Patrick.
It's wagyu, right?
Wagyu.
And depending if you're talking to East or West Coast folks, they might say it a little bit different and more, but I'm a Midwest guy, so it's wagyu. Right?
Wagyu. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's good because it's going to come up in a song later and I want to pronounce it correctly.
Oh, heck yeah.
One more little piece of farm cred that we need to establish. You look like the kind of guy who's maybe got a pocket knife on him right now. Any chance?
You, yeah.
Attaboy.
Yep.
Attaboy.
Yeah, there we go.
Farm cred established. Okay. We can move on now.
It's still got blood from a steak on it, so there you go.
So you're not just carrying it around opening bales and whatever. You're cutting steak with it too.
My wife won't trust it anywhere near her food, but I'm not as germophobic, so.
That is some cowboy stuff, my brother. I love it. I love it. Okay, so the military is a big part of your story, and thank you for your service. We appreciate you and all those who serve this great nation. Talk to us about you were in the service and came back, and you wound up here somehow. Fill in the middle for us there a little bit, please, Patrick.
Yeah, 30,000 foot view in a couple minutes or less. 9/11 had a tremendous impact, and that was kind of where I made the choice that the military was going to have a big factor within my life. Did ROTC first, ended up dropping out of college and enlisting because if I'm being honest, the enlisted side always appealed more to me. Did it with the contract to 1st Ranger Battalion, which is it's the premier raid force of the United States Army and United States Special Operations. And it was a busy time. Afghanistan was heating up like crazy, and it was busy, and there was a lot of politics playing out in that country, as we've seen since then. And we kind of all, well, I won't speak for the regiment, but myself, I got sick of seeing friends buried for stupid reasons. And so I decided to get out, and my career path that I was pursuing was large animal veterinary medicine. And when you're 26 and going back to school, you think about your long-term impact of your college a little more than you do when you're, say, 18 or 19.
Yeah.
And the amount you paid for school versus what you made getting out, just that there was quite a bit of disparity there. And I couldn't handle doing neuters and spays all day.
Yeah.
And so, I was doing a minor in entrepreneurship. So I put the business plan for this company, Casey Cattle Company, together. And 2016 is when we started.
And it's going really well. I can attest to that. Yeah.
It's been, entrepreneurship and ranching, right? Both are incredibly difficult careers, and good thing I was naive getting into it because I'm not sure I would have done it if I knew how difficult both were. But the meat side of the business is definitely what pays the bills. Um, but since 22, we find ourselves in a pretty weird place in the ag community throughout the United States. And really, out of desperation, is where the idea for Valor Provisions came from.
Okay. Let's get to that. I want to stick with your service and firing up Casey Cattle Company and Valor Provisions. Um, we can't go on without talking about Staff Sergeant Katzenberger. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that, please, Patrick?
Yeah. When I joining the special operations, like that was not just my dream from like 18 on. As like a kindergartner, I was the kid like dressed up in full camo with like a toy gun running through the woods and seeing if I could replicate what I saw in Rambo First Blood. Um, And I always thought I wanted to be part of the SEAL teams. They do a great job with marketing, and I thought that was the career path I wanted to pursue. But then my sister started dating and ended up marrying a guy named Jeremy Katzenberger, and he was about 8 years ahead of me um, in regiment. So he got to First Ranger Battalion in 2006, and really kind of persuaded me that the regiment is the path that I wanted to take. When I say regiment, I mean the 75th Ranger Regiment. Um, and so that's what I did. He was in a different company than I was, but on my first deployment to Afghanistan, I was in Kandahar in southern Afghanistan, and he was in Paktika province. And he ended up getting killed in a firefight, leading his squad from the front, like a good leader does, and kicked off a heck of a firefight for the men of First Ranger Battalion, and they did what they did really well, and they got after it. So
Yeah, yeah. And from that tragedy, that heartache, springs your idea to include veterans in what you've got going on there and to give opportunities there. Thanks again for your service. Regardless of the condition a soldier comes home, nobody gets out unscathed, do they, my friend?
no, definitely not. And a big thing I preach is, I didn't realize it then, but his death that night was the it was really the death of who I was at that point at 21 years old. And what I tell veterans on a regular basis is who comes out of that, um, who comes out of that terrible situation, you choose, right? You can
Hmm.
either use that situation for good or bad, and I did both. But eventually it turned into this,
Yeah.
which is something that I hope gives hope to some folks that are looking for purpose past service. So.
Absolutely. Purpose past service. That's really good. Let's you know what? I want to talk more about KC Cattle. But before we do, maybe now's a good time for a musical number. I'm going to Casey Cattle. Casey Cattle, here I come. I'm gonna chew the fat a little till the grilling's all done. They got the Patriot provisions for mutually assured satisfaction. Casey Cattle, you've got brick and mortar, you got wagyu cows running around. Talk to us about Casey Cattle. What is it? Brick and mortar you got going there? Tell us more, Patrick.
Yeah, Casey Cattle Company. I almost laugh when I look back at the original business plan, but the whole premise was to bridge the gap between agriculture and the consumer. Just like the military, there's 1% that serve and 99% that don't.
Hmm,
Same way in the ag world, right? You have 1% of this community in the United States that produces food for not only the other 99%, but about 70% globally. Um, And there's such a disconnect between those two. A lot of end consumers get their information from Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. Well, used to be TikTok. We'll see how that plays out, I guess. But uh, there was this huge disparity. Why do farmers and ranchers do the things they do? And I saw an opportunity there. It's like, what if you cut out a lot of these middlemen and bring meat directly from the ranch to the plate? And I know that seems like, well, duh, but back when I was forming this business idea, there weren't as many folks doing it. So
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well,
We will be right back after a word from our sponsor.
We can't control the weather. We can't affect the global demand for corn and soy. We can't even fix that piece of equipment you swear is still good if you just had the right part. But BASF can offer you 0% financing on our proven, consistent performing fungicides. Our grower finance program is here to help you maximize your yield potential and savings with 0% APR on some of the highest performing fungicides available until March 15th, 2025. Because now more than ever, every dollar counts, and you can't beat 0% financing on innovative corn and soybean fungicides like Revitech fungicide, Revilock fungicide, and Veltima fungicide. Keep more in your wallet while improving your yield potential. Talk to your BASF retailer today about the Grower Finance Program to lock in 0% APR. Subject to credit approval, terms, and conditions. See BASF Grower Finance Program for details. Always read and follow label directions.
and Kansas City, I mean, if you're looking to sell steaks to restaurants, to just even the educated palate, the consumer, we love our beef here, dude. You found a good spot.
we do. And, we were one of the first to do it with wagyu. We were one of 4 online when I started. And man, it was the Wild West trying to figure that out, but it was a ton of fun. So.
Yeah. Where can we find more information? Can we buy steaks online from you all? And where might we find out more?
Yeah, so Casey Cattle Company is where you get the Wagyu, and valorprovisions.us is a separate it is separate from Casey Cattle Company, only in the sense that we're bringing on a bunch of other domestically raised proteins in
Okay.
one marketplace.
Okay. I'd love to talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about that next. For all of my guests, I offer their business a bit of an ode, a second musical selection. If you'd like to, you can use it for a jingle. I know it's super catchy. It's going to be stuck in your head all day. And for that, I apologize, Patrick. But a little ode to KC Cattle. KC Cattle, the world's greatest beef, with frankfurters that win awards and Wagyu too. KC Cattle, from the Constantinople of the Midwest. Crew cut cattle, they're munching in time to render nutrients and hold a healthy line. KC Cattle on the Grow Getter Show. Okay, KC Cattle, Valor Provisions, 2 separate entities as I understand it. Talk to me about Valor.
Yeah, so you touched on the hot dog deal in your jingle there. That was what put us on the map. We got voted world's best hot dog by Food and Wine, and
Wow.
it's when we went from shipping 20 orders a week to literally having 12,000 roll in a 12-hour
Oh.
time period,
Oh,
and that was 2019, right? So like
wow.
then we rolled straight into the pandemic, where folks could no longer find protein on the grocery store shelves if you're on the east or west coast, and so that we grew exponentially in 21 and 22. But it was about probably halfway through 22 that the writing was on the wall. Like, man, everybody's inputs across the board, but really on the beef cattle side, the economics really, we're having a hard time making sense. All of your inputs for beef cattle just going through the roof.
Yeah.
At best case scenario, 2x, and at a worst case scenario, you're seeing 12x for fertilizer and all kinds of crazy stuff. And on top of that, I didn't have a ton of money, starting up this company, and all of a sudden private equity and venture capital saw the need for more D2C e-com meat businesses. And so we're, like myself, like many in the last couple of years, we're taking it on the chin. And it wasn't until last year, about springtime, where I think I was literally driving a freezer van down to Texas. I think I'd been working, for like 14 days straight, no sleep. And it was like, man, how do we make it through this? And, I'm calling our top 100 customers. And, normally I'm only dealing with a customer when we really mess something up.
Yeah.
which is not always great for the ego. But this was a goal I had for myself, which was just to have a conversation with our top 100 customers to figure out what we're doing well. And so
Wow. Yeah.
that was life giving, and honestly probably saved the company, and where the idea for Valor Provisions came from, which was the fact that, our unfortunately we find ourselves in this country right now where there's not a single part of the food industry that's not controlled by, at best, an oligopoly, and at worst a duopoly, right? And um, it's not what myself or any other veteran fought for, was that, right?
Mm.
And so, I figured I can either quit and shut down Casey Cattle Company, or I can go fight. And,
Mhm.
lucky for me, I like a good fight. So that is where the idea for Valid Provisions came from. Launched in November as a marketplace. It's a one-time, lifetime fee to become a member. And the reason for that fee is to keep our doors open
Sure.
and be able to pay the rancher across the road, the rancher in Montana, the rancher in Texas that we're working with, a livable wage for the animals that they're producing.
Mhm.
And any money in between that's getting passed on to the consumer. So we're competing with the higher end grocery stores out there.
Yeah. So are you talking about almost kind of a very large scale kind of cooperative sort of a thing that you draw from?
Yeah, we launched with 3 vendors at the beginning of November last year, and that was really kind of like proof of concept, like
Yeah.
small test groups, small emails to our current Casey Cattle customer base. And it was pretty freaking awesome to see the feedback. And, they were part of creating it. We were surveying the heck of them, like, hey, we have this
Mm.
crazy idea. What do you want to see it become?
Yeah.
And that was where it came. It was like this blurry vision that we had, and then all of a sudden it
Mhm.
became crystal clear. Like, this is what we need to do, and we're attacking with vengeance this year.
Well, and I believe it takes a special kind of person to have that entrepreneurial spirit, to get smacked around a little bit by their own business.
Yeah.
Imagine my own business is kicking my butt right now, but I'm gonna keep going. And I'm hearing that, I'm vibing that from you pretty hard here, Patrick. You just got to keep going, don't you?
Well, you got to like pain a little bit if you're going to do ranching or entrepreneurship. And, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I got that threshold for pain in spades. So,
Yeah, yeah. That'll get you down the path of ways anyway.
yeah.
Um, I I love your story here, Patrick. I would like for you to just take a second, and I don't want to spring this on you, so I'm going to give a long, sort of drawn out intro to this here, so you can think a minute. I want you to talk about the people who are watching this podcast right now, thinking, "Man, this guy is doing what I want to do." Hey, I had an idea kind of like that, but it's never going to work for me. Talk to those people. I mean, you've had some dark moments, I'm sure. How do you talk yourself out of those? How do you keep going even when it seems like, and even on paper, maybe you ought to not, but you keep going anyway? Talk to these up and comers here, buddy.
You know, um, there's a couple things that pop up there. The first being faith.
Mm,
As I look
mm,
back on the last 7 years of trying to get this company to where it is, there was no shortage of times in there where I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna make payroll next week, or I don't know how we're gonna be out of cash. And every single one of those times, like the hot dog one's a perfect example. We were down to the last $3,000 we had to our name the
yeah.
week before that happened. And overnight, we had 12,000 orders come in. We didn't make money on selling single packs of hot dogs that we had to ship across the United States, but we gained a customer base that believed in our mission.
Right.
And, the next part I'll touch on is you got to have grit, and you
Mm.
have to believe in the product that you're selling, and you need to worry less about, you got to make money. I learned that the hard way, but you have to care more about the product that you're raising or selling or producing or manufacturing than you do just making money. Because if you're just worried about making money, it's a lot tougher to come by. If you're just solely focused on producing the best value and best product possible to your customer base, the money comes eventually.
Mm. That's good. That's really good. Um, your military service and that of those around you has been a big part of this conversation. I wonder if you might just talk to some vets out there having a rough time. What might you say to them? Shout out to vets out there. Hey, gang, we appreciate you.
I you're not alone. That's the first and foremost part. I planned. very well for my exit from the military. I was accepted to college. I had it all lined out. I knew where I was going to live, what I needed to do. But the part I did not plan for was losing that camaraderie I had and the purpose.
Yeah.
And that was the road and the struggle that led me to where am now for the first time really since I got out, with the creation of Valor Provisions and doing something that makes me feel purposeful.
Yeah.
That's where you win. And I can't stand the message in media that we are broken. If you can just change that a little bit, right? And whoever you lost or whatever that painful memory is that you think about from the military, if you just change the narrative on that a little bit to use it as perspective to where you're sitting right now, it can make you an indomitable spirit.
Mm, mm. Amen. Well said. Well said. The brick-and-mortar is out in Parkville, Mo, correct?
It is. Yes, right on Main Street.
Okay, very good. Parkville, Mo. If you're local here in KC area, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump. If not, kccattlecompany.com. That's kccattlecompany.com. Patrick Montgomery, I think I'm going to cut you loose. We have taken up enough of your time. I can see you got something going on today, so we appreciate you pulling over to just have a little conversation with us here on Grow Getters. Super proud of you. Thanks again for your service, sir. A man of faith, entrepreneurship, and service. A good example to us all. Thank you, Patrick Montgomery.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, go Chiefs.
I'll go on that limb with you, brother.
Right.
Go Chiefs.
Right.
Go
Right,
Chiefs.
perfect.
Patrick Montgomery from KC Cattle Company and Valor Provisions. Production support provided by Jack Heffron and Zach Zingula. Find Grow Getters on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and listen to it wherever you get your favorite podcasts. So for all of us here, it's your pal Davis Michaelsen on Grow Getters. And hey, everybody, let's get out there and grow get 'em.
Grow Getters is a production of Farm Journal Studios, where no one grows alone.